This is Liberty Under Attack Radio, hosted by Shane and Matt. Your place for documented truth and where freedom is the only agenda. We must end the terror war.
And good evening and welcome. You're listening to Liberty Under Attack Radio on the Freedom Phalanx Radio Network. Today is July 12th, 2015, and we've got another controversial broadcast planned for you this evening. We'll definitely be pissing off some status with this one. As always, I'm your host, Shane. My co-host, Matt, is also with us this evening. How's it going, brother?
Going great. Nice to meet you.
You ready to piss off some status?
Oh, hell yeah.
It's the best time. It's the best time. So, you got anything you want to update the listeners with tonight?
Oh, yes. Congress is pushing for CISPA again. Obama apparently is intent on signing this bill. This is a perfect example of why we cannot trust government for anything. It's intrusive. Will criminalize specific search engine words. Give no room for due process to accused people. Use ISPs or internet service providers as proxies for state violence against internet users. Brings the surveillance state to a collectivist all-agency head instead of leaving all the abuse in the hands of the NSA. If nobody acknowledged the abusive rulership of a congressman, senator, president, or the companies that fund their administrative powers into elections and beyond, none of us would be in this mess in the first place. If you believe in reformism, if you believe we still live in a so-called representative democracy, that's a bit of a joke in itself, but I digress. Check out the website, CISPAisback.org, and decide for yourselves how to proceed on this subject that affects all of us here on FBRN and beyond for the worse.
Indeed. Thank you very much, Matt.
You're welcome.
So, next, probably the one I'm most excited about, or actually, let me back up, I apologize. As always, we've got some updates to provide for all of you. First off, Matt and I are both working on about 3 articles at once right now, so expect plenty of reading material in the near future. Next, probably the one I'm most excited about. Producer, please cue up picture 1 if you could. I will be attending the Midwest Peace and Liberty Festival in Delton, Michigan on Sunday, August 8th, and hopefully Saturday as well, but that's still up in the air at this point. I'm going to head up there and rendezvous with Kyle Molinet, who we had on a couple weeks ago, and also meet some like-minded people and hopefully get some new listeners from Michigan. I'm also planning to put together some YouTube videos, as well as something else I'm extremely happy about. If I can get the technical side figured out, which I have made some good progress already, I'll be hosting 1 hour of the August 9th broadcast from the Midwest Peace and Liberty Festival. And Kyle Reardon and my co-host Matt will be holding down the fort at home for the final hour while I am journeying back to the communist state of Illinois. Festival, as you can see from that picture, the festival is from August 7th to 10th. And if you're available not too far away, come on up. I'd love to meet some of our listeners. I know that if you're listening to this broadcast, you would have a great time being outside of the realm of statism for a few days. So definitely check that out. Next, I completed my newest article, which you'll hear in just a little bit, titled Behind Enemy Lines, The Dangers of the Libertarian Party. Matt's newest article is completed as well and will be up this evening after the show, which concludes the series and his critiques of the page The Liberty Eagle. This article is titled Status Vultures and the Demise of Liberty, Part 2. And you can find that at libertyunderattack.com, along with the rest of our articles. And for those of you who are listening on YouTube or any other various archival outlet, make sure to tune into a live broadcast. We are here every Sunday at 6 p.m. Central Standard Time, spreading the consistent message of truth. Also, make sure to subscribe to email updates at the website. There's a field on the sidebar that allows you to enter your email address so that you never have to miss another post from LUA, and from the ones that we have planned, you don't want to. Also, if you like what you hear and see, make sure to support us. That can be done by sharing our articles, thumbs-upping our YouTube videos, sharing this radio show, or if you're feeling extremely generous, we would definitely love your support financially by either Bitcoin or PayPal. If you're also interested, you can sponsor or advertise with LUA. On the website, there are 2 new tabs. One of them is advertise, and one of them says support us. And if you're interested in doing either of those, feel free to contact us. We'd love to chat with you. And lastly, probably the most important, we would love to hear from you. We tend to choose controversial, politically incorrect topics to discuss, and would love to hear from those that agree or disagree with us. The call-in number is 218-895-3818, or on Skype at FPRN Radio Live. Now, there's one thing that's really been pissing me off. The aspiring political rulers have announced their intentions to run in 2016, and well, I have no reason to give a shit as my voter registration is canceled. But if I'm going to take some of my precious time to discuss it, there's surely something significant there. As I'm sure most of you know, Bernie Sanders, the openly avowed socialist, has announced that he is going to run as well. The fact that he is a socialist, other than by his own words, is easy to tell when you look at the issues page on his website, where he makes the retarded and inaccurate claim that the good news is that the economy today is much better than when President George W. Bush left office. Fucking joke. Old Bernie is also a huge fan of democracy, which, as Karl Marx believed, is the road to socialism. Same belief was held by Lenin, who stated that democracy is indispensable to socialism. Watch out for those political buzzwords, kids, especially democracy, which is mob rule. They can get you killed. It's also interesting that old Bernie pulled 10,000 supporters in his recent trip to Wisconsin, where he delivered his promises to fight for universal health care, break up the big banks, without eliminating central banking, I might add, and redistribute the wealth from the richest Americans to the middle class and the poor.
Same old bullshit tune.
Indeed. And an even more inconsistent turn, the fascist Faux News had a segment praising the open socialist Bernie Sanders this past week, with the reason being that he could knock Queen Hillary off the 2016 throne. Now let's compare this to the way the corporate whore media treated Ron Paul both times in 2008 and 2012. I dislike Paul for a lot of reasons, including that he was a political ruler, but he offered a more palatable vision of liberty, and the media demonized him. Now, as all of our normal listeners know, I despise the carnival of distractions, otherwise known as the news cycle. But when Americans that supposedly support the Constitution and freedom back an open socialist, the tides have surely started to rise to a never-before-seen level. Now, for those who are unaware of the situation in Greece had a struggling economy already, and then elected an openly avowed communist government to solve their economic problems. For those who live under a rock, Greece is stuck in the Eurozone, which is a socialist gridlock, and now Greece is facing its third bailout. In addition to that, Germany is being hounded to redistribute their wealth to help the struggling economy of Greece. This is also a very unwise thing for the EU to do, considering Germany's history last century.
All the self-destruction.
No shit. Although I feel no sympathy for the Grecians or any of these other communism-advocating countries, as they are surely going to get what they deserve. I think it's also worth a mention in passing that from this event, Bitcoin has gone from around $250 up to $301. That was as of yesterday. I didn't check that yet today. As the struggling Grecians are turning towards a decentralized currency. So go back into Bernie Sanders. Contrary to his belief, the central banked holy shit. The central banked economy all civilized nations of the world are living under can only get worse, and fixes such as quantitative easing can only delay the inevitable. So America, with a surely struggling economy that is $18 trillion in debt, with unfunded liabilities totaling over a whopping $97 trillion, and a derivatives bubble exceeding $615 trillion in 2009, is now foaming at the mouth over an open socialist.
It's so close to quadrillion, isn't it?
Now, I'm not implying that old Bernie is going to be the equivalent to Alexis Tsipras, the leader of the Greek coalition of the radical left, but I will say the actions and inclinations of the American people at this point are certainly similar to the actions of the Greeks. No logic, no rationale, the want and need for a welfare state, and complete ignorance of history. Although this certainly isn't a surprise to me, For those who don't know, I work at a local finance company and would equate the mainline American public with those poor saps in Greece. Can't tell you how many times I've dealt with idiot callers that sign contracts without reading them. How many times I've dealt with people that think it's unfair that there is a finance charge, leading all the way up to the few idiots who didn't even know what interest was, and since they only borrowed $500, that is all they are willing to pay back, and will let their account go into default because of their inability to understand basic finances, let alone economics in general. Sadly, this is this is what we have faced and are facing. Free this, free that, redistribution of wealth, the list goes on and on. The curse of reformism. The idea that
of slavery.
no, it can't ever just break away completely. Got to go back to some way of working within the system. The idea that any reformist, whether an open socialist or a member of the Libertarian Party, can actually bring freedom through the vehicle of the political process is completely absurd. There are a couple differences between the two, though. The first one is that the socialists have made progress, and the LP has not. The second one is the fact that socialists don't have to abandon their philosophical principles to participate in the political process, whereas a libertarian involved in the political process must and ceases to even be a libertarian once they cross that line. That segues into the rest of this broadcast. First, you'll hear the spoken discourse of my recent political field trip when I attended a local Libertarian Party chapter meeting. Next, Matt and I will discuss the inconsistencies and irrationalities of the LP platform. And lastly, you'll hear a party dialogue between an LP member and an anti-political libertarian. Producer, please cue up clip 1. Enjoy.
Behind Enemy Lines: The Dangers of the Libertarian Party. Originally published on July 10th, 2015 at libertyunderattack.com and read to you by the author. Consistent libertarians hold two philosophical axioms above all else. Those two are the non-aggression principle, which forbids all initiatory force, and the self-ownership axiom, which upholds private property rights and the ownership of one's body. If one is going to call themselves a libertarian, they must put those two philosophies first, or in all honesty, they aren't libertarians. My conscience has made me realize that being involved in the political process at all is a violation of both of the principles that consistent philosophical libertarians like myself deem extremely important. First off, the state is inherently anti-propertarian because in order to allegedly protect our property rights, they must first violate our property rights. They express this in many ways, such as property taxes, their use of eminent domain and nuisance abatement, and the simple fact that they use force to deter us from putting substances into our own bodies. Next, voting in and of itself is a violation of the non-aggression principle. When you enter a voting booth and scratch shit on paper, or push a button, you are violently forcing your beliefs and preferences upon others. Even if you're voting for the most consistent liberty-minded candidate, you're still attempting to force freedom upon others. As Samuel Konkin mentioned in his 1980 New Libertarian Manifesto, quote, "It is part of the statist mystique to confuse the necessity of ends means consistency. It is thus the most crucial activity of the libertarian theorist to expose inconsistencies. But we have attempted and most failed to describe the consistent means and ends combination of libertarianism," end quote. The Libertarian Party was founded in December of 1971, and since then they haven't accomplished anything. Their stated goal was to educate the people about true freedom, and winning elections was only a vehicle for spreading the message of liberty. Since their inception, we've only lost more freedoms, the government has only gotten bigger, and more Americans have become victims of democide and abuse. And their goal of education is almost a moot point, as they're teaching the gullible minarchists, that is, minimal statists, that the political process and restoring the republic are the only realistic ways to win back their freedoms. But most of all, the reason the LP is dangerous is because with its involvement in the political process, it is giving legitimacy to the most dangerous superstition, the belief in authority and government. I mention these details about the LP because I've been going on political field trips these past few months. My first one was at a McLean County board meeting. Another trip involved dealing with the employees in the McLean County Government Center,